And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition, yet again, in the Metal Steel Podcast. But of course, here's truly Charles Prodigy Richey. We're getting ready for the Steelers right now as they will be going into week number 2, their 21st home opener, making it officially 20 years ago since the Steelers moved in to their newly stadium at that time, Heinz Field, and their very first game in Heinz Field was against the Cincinnati Bengals back in 2001. Since then, the Pittsburgh Steelers, their all-time home openers, since moving into Heinz Field, they have been a 16-4 with only 4 losses coming back in their second season on Sunday Night Football back in 2002 versus the Oakland Raiders, which coincidentally, they're going to be facing this Sunday, not the Oakland Raiders, but the Vegas Raiders. And then the other 3 losses on that they had back in 2013 when they had that horrific 0-4 start to start off the season where they finished off 8-8. Then, for the first time ever, back-to-back home openers with losings in 2018 and 2019 versus Kansas City Chiefs, and then last but not least, the same game that we saw Ben Roethlisberger's season will be shortly over back in 2019 versus Seattle Seahawks, where he would exit in some pain at the halftime and only be found out the next day he's lost for the season. And here we go right now, Pittsburgh Steelers looking to build up some nice momentum starting from this past Sunday's win versus Buffalo Bills. And once again, too, I mean, let's take a look at that real quick. I mean, when we look at the key differences in that matchup, and I just want to apologize for everyone who was listening to me on Monday. For a little audio background in the background, I kind of got that figured out right now. We should be all set. But real quickly, I want to take a look at this Steelers versus Bills game that happened back on Sunday before we get any further when they go prepare the Raiders. I mean, check this out. I mean, the first half, we know offensively things were not really going their way. I mean, the defense was holding the 4th down all game. They only gave up 1 touchdown on the field goal, 10 points, and it really held them to only 1 touchdown throughout the entire game. I mean, when the Steelers, won this game, I mean, they outscored the Bills 23-6 in the second half to win that game by 23-16. So when we look at it, I mean, you look at some of the key stuff right here. I mean, that really stood out. Aside from Ben Roethlisberger's passing, I mean, the passing was definitely at a low in that first half. I mean, when you look at it, he only threw for 47 yards, completing 50% of his passes, going 6 of 12. And then he did get sacked twice. But then you notice in the second half, too, the offensive line really came together, proved why they were the number 1 offensive line. Yeah, this is a new, totally different group, but nice to see in the second half, no sacks for surrender. I do anticipate the sacks to go up a little bit this year. I'm going to say over-under at 20 sacks this season, it only because it's just brand new starters in there. I mean, it's a clean slate, I mean, practically. So, I mean, you look at it right here. I mean, what was some of the other stuff that stood out? 1 for 6 on 3rd down conversions, converting only 17%. Against the Bills in that first half. And then also, too, I mean, in that contest, I mean, what else was going wrong, too? I mean, only had 7 yards from their running game, which also include Najee Harris in here. And again, it was only his first game. Like, see how he continues to warm up throughout the season, how he gets some chinks done. But don't forget, too, I mean, also did point out the fact, too, Franco Harris, I mean, for the most part, I mean, when he played as a rookie, I mean, with the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 1972, same year they had like their first ever playoff win in franchise history, which really started to turn things around. He didn't get his first 100-yard rushing game until his 5th game of the season. I mean, you look at like some of the numbers, I mean, right here. I mean, he started off, I mean, like his first game, 28 yards off of 10 carries, 35 yards, only went up 7 the second game versus the Bengals. And then he would miss their game against the St. Louis Cardinals at the time, but he did have 16 yards versus the Cowboys off of 3 carries. And then finally, he had his first 115-yard game versus Houston Oilers. 19 carries for 115 yards. Yet, I mean, in his rookie season, too, I mean, he did, for the most part, when you look at it, he finished off the year with 1,235 yards of scrimmage. I mean, basically, for the most part. And you really look at it right there. I mean, just from an overall standpoint, and I think Najee Harris right now, you got to believe right now he's definitely going to be held to some expectations. I mean, when you really factor it in here, I mean, it's just definitely really an interesting time right now. I mean, the running game that Art Rooney has definitely made at his year-end press conference following their playoff loss to the Cleveland Browns. So I expect that to get a little bit better. But then you swing things over to the second half in that game. I mean, too, like what really were some of the noticeable keys right there? Second half right here. I mean, we talked about the passing yards. That went up 198 yards more passing in the second half. No, excuse me, for passing yards, excuse me. He had 130 more yards Ben Roethlisberger did in the second half. This game was 177 yards, 1 touchdown pass with no picks. And then, like I said, too, I mean, third downs started to get a little bit better. 3 of 6 in there. And then also, too, I mean, when you also look at it, too, I mean, for the most part, I mean, what was happening, too, I mean, for the second half, as far as, like, all their drives, all 5 of their drives, well, technically 4 scoring drives right there where they legitimately were able to move the ball down the field. They converted all 4 drives, which include going in the red zone 1 for 3. Now, the block punt, I mean, I believe that did technically count as a drive because it was on special teams, a block punt return for a touchdown. I mean, in that contest. And, I mean, you saw Ulysses Gilbert, he was about a factor of the return for that into the end zone. Thanks off to Miles Killebrew, who's on there, who made a spectacular block on that. And you saw it right there. And you really look at everything, too. I mean, with the Buffalo Bills, I mean, this is a team who was supposed to be coming in with an elite offense right there. Definitely flopped, I think, in a lot of people's minds for the most part. And you look at it right now for this time, I really believe right now, well, what they got going on right now, I mean, they're going to be playing a Raiders team right now who's definitely rolling with a whole lot of confidence right now. And thanks, Baltimore Ravens, but I get a little concerned. How's that going to translate into this Sunday? I mean, week to week, as you think about it. I mean, I don't think this is a team that really is something to be overlooked. I mean, I still feel like in their minds, they feel like they can compete with anybody in that AFC West. I mean, yeah, good Broncos team right now has got a pretty good defense. I mean, this is John Gruden, his 4th time at the saddle. Not been really successful as of late, but I mean, John Gruden, for the most part, too, since coming back into coaching 3 years ago, in his 4th season, his second with the newly Vegas Raiders, and coming in here, I mean, he's only had 1 losing. He has had 2 losing seasons. Last year was the first time they didn't have a losing season. They just finished 500. Remember, that will not be the case this year. Of course, is there going to be a win or losing season? And you got to believe right now, John Gruden is going to start feeling the pressure at some point to really get this thing turned around here. And when you look at it, I mean, the Vegas Raiders, I mean, he had a 10-year, $100 million contract they signed back in 2018 just to come back out of coaching. And then you also have right here, Mike Tomlin, who is now coming in here. I mean, he had a 3-year contract extension here. I mean, done back on April, as he'll be sticking around through the 2024 season here. I mean, going into it. I mean, you look at, Mike Tomlin. I mean, for the most part, I mean, he's here for 3 years, but I mean, you got a guy like John Gruden, who's been at 10 years through $100 million, basically. And a lot of people are definitely looking at it right now as Mike Tomlin. I mean, basically looking at it, he's going to be having $9.5 million a year, basically, for the Steelers. I mean, in comparisons to John Gruden's 10-year, $100 million deal. So when you look at it, he's going to be at $38 million versus $100 million. I mean, let's just say this. I mean, Davis right now, I mean, just trying to do like his father. I mean, just win, baby. But I mean, it's definitely a new look Raiders team at the end of the day. And you got to believe right now, I mean, at the end of the day, when you think of Steelers Raiders, I mean, a lot of people always, I think, remember this rivalry a lot more back in the 70s right there. And for the most part, I mean, when you really look at it too, I mean, for the times that these teams like met in the playoffs during these contests right here, they met 5 years in a row, 5 straight years, and where the Steelers and the Raiders met up. Steelers won 4 out of those 5, or no, excuse me, they won 3 out of those 5 years back in 1972, of course, with the immaculate reception, and then back in 74 and 75. And you look at it right now, what they've been able to do. I mean, from a rivalry standpoint, I mean, I think a lot of these legends right here, I mean, too, I mean, on here, I mean, like a guy like a Ted Hendricks, I mean, basically on the defense right here, who definitely played dividends right there. I mean, you think right now, as far as like the Oakland Raiders, I mean, that team who's really came with a lot of pride. I mean, you look at like some of their guys like they had on defense when they finally broke through in 1976 here, back in the year. And you look at it right here. I mean, you had like a free safety, Jack Tatum here. I mean, also too, Villapiano right here, outside linebacker. I mean, Willie Brown. I mean, Ted Hendricks right there, who's probably like the equivalent to like the Jack Lambert right there. I mean, a guy who's also made 2 all-decade teams, also a 4-time Super Bowl champion, won 1 ring with the Baltimore Colts. I mean, a lot of it too. I mean, when you really look at this team here, I mean, as far as who they were, I mean, you think of John Madden too, who's the ultimate leader of that group right here. I mean, you look at aside from that, I mean, like the guys they had on like offense right there. I mean, for the most part, I mean, including like their starting quarterback right now, and Ken Stabler, who finally made the Hall of Fame. I believe it was back in 2015 or 2016 when he finally got inducted here. And I mean, the other guys like on offense right here, they had Gene Upshaw right there, Art Shell, and everything going on. And I was just hearing like Cook and Joe right there, and they were just debating right then. I mean, possibly you could definitely say the 70s was probably like the best time when the National Football League was good before it is right now. I mean, totally different game, yes, from a competitive standpoint. I mean, so much more offense. I mean, definitely arising when they're trying to safeten the game as best they can. I mean, definitely trying to emphasize on player safety, even though it's still a hard hitting game. I mean, the Steelers and Raiders at this time are today's uh, Steelers and Ravens, Baltimore Ravens rivalry, if you really think about it. This is the original rivalry and how it just goes back. And I got to tell you, I mean, watching these two teams lock up, boy, they always bring it. And we'll definitely be in for a treat this Sunday. Hopefully, it'll be in the favor of the Steelers right there as they're looking to pick up their 17th win at Heinz Field. Hopefully, they'll go 17-4 lifetime. Once again, you guys can follow me on social media. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MassSteelCGR for the Mass Steel Podcast and on Instagram at Mass Steel Nation here. So let's take a look at some key notes here on the opening drive right now. Mike Tomlin did mention in his press conference that inside linebacker Robert Spillane, who has a shin, he is expected to be ready for Sunday coming up. And let's take a look at the injury report. So the good thing is right now he's been a full participant the 2 out of the 3 days of practice. He was limited on Wednesday, but he was a full participant on Thursday and Friday. So it seems like a pretty good chance he's going to be able to play right there, get some snaps in there in this contest right here. And then here's a few other people that appeared on the injury report right now, which would be key in my opinion right now. I mean, more particularly Joe Hayden and Devin Bush right now. Joe Hayden, he's dealing with a groin injury. He is questionable for this Sunday's matchup. And, of course, you got Devin Bush right there who will be questionable. And I got to believe right now, when you look at the Steelers' depth chart, too, I mean, for going into this game, I think one thing that will definitely be a concern, if for some reason Joe Hayden is out of this contest right here, I mean, you got Joe Hayden as a starting left corner in this game. I mean, you'd probably be looking at, like, Justin Lane right now, probably the next man up, and probably see a little Witherspoon here in this game. But Cam Sutton, I think that's going to be an interesting one right here, too. You also got James Pierre, a guy who's definitely been turning heads, I mean, not just in training camp in the preseason. I mean, he is definitely seen to be a very piece that's been on the radar, that's been going noticed right here. I mean, you think about those guys right here and what they bring to the table as far as overall value. Because I got to tell you, I think a guy right now in Cam Sutton, it is definitely going to be vital that he is able to, like, really hold on the fort and help set the tone. I mean, not only that, too. I mean, you'll have some guys to fall back on your safeties with Minka Fitzpatrick. I mean, who'll be playing free safety. Let's see how, I mean, Terrell Edmonds continues to do. But I really believe right now, I mean, if Joe Hayden is out, I mean, look for these guys to really step it up a little bit because I think that is going to be very key right here in this game. I think, if anything, I think that's going to be one of my first keys going into this game because I tell you what, Derek Carr, I mean, like him or not, I mean, for the most part, who has been sticking around, I mean, with this team, I mean, for a while now, I mean, basically, as we look at Derek Carr, who is entering his 8th season with the Silver and Black. I mean, guy is still pretty phenomenal to watch. I mean, in my opinion, kind of reminds me of like a well-polished up version of Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, the way he plays. I mean, a guy who still had 27 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year, which is not bad. I mean, over 4,100 yards passing in that season. I mean, you have 3 straight years of going over 4,000 yards. I mean, since signing his contract extension back in 2017, thanks in large part to leading his team to the playoffs. Now, the only part of this, I mean, with a guy like Derek Carr, I mean, he doesn't win many big games right now. He has 48-63 lifetime in his career during the regular season. I mean, but at the same time, too, I tell you what, one thing is, too, I mean, the Raiders have done a decent job of protecting him the last few years. I mean, when we really look at it, I mean, was able to keep those sacks to like under 30 in the last couple of years, 26 in 2020 and 29 in 2019. But I mean, this guy right here, at the end of the day, I mean, it may not be a perfect marriage with Gruden, but you gotta like this guy's heart. I really believe he's a guy who definitely uplifts some people right now. And then you also look at a guy like Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is playing in his 18th season right now. I mean, who's took $5 million less money to even come back. And a lot of people may be looking at Ben Roethlisberger and saying he is not, the same old Ben Roethlisberger that he once was. I mean, we're still having debates as far as him being the worst quarterback in the AFC North. I mean, if you're talking about like maybe skill wise, I'll put him third in the AFC North. I'm not going to put him at the bottom of the barrel because let's face it, Lamar Jackson. Listen to him; he's got the legs. I mean, he's still trying to evolve as a passer. He can pass good when he wants to, but consistently enough, all around game and winning big games. I mean, if we're talking about like winning games, I'm gonna go with Ben Roethlisberger first for right now. I mean, they won the division. Obviously, they lost to Baker Mayfield and the Browns in the playoffs. Of course, with Myles Garrett on the defense. I just and then Joe Burrow too. Listen, he hasn't proven anything to me. He hasn't proven squat. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not going to doubt this guy ain't going to turn out be a decent quarterback, but he's still got to prove himself. I mean, how in the world do you play in your first season? Don't get me wrong. We've seen a few broken leg injuries with quarterbacks the last few years, a little bit more noticeable than recent memory. But to have your leg broken in your first year, not good. There is something wrong with that pitcher to actually make me want to buy stock to this guy. That just because of the fact that he's finally got himself a good receiver. I mean, from his playing days at LSU, that he is going to have a better second year. I mean, this guy has been a National College Football champion with the LSU Tigers. I mean, for the most part. But, I mean, when you also look at, who the Bengals took, with Jamar Chase, wide receiver, I mean, that was definitely one of his huge running mates right there. But I can't see it. I got to see more out of this guy. Joe Burrow, he is not this guy right now. I'm not buying any stock into a guy who's only played last year. He's played 10 games. I mean, the same game, I think he got hurt versus Steelers where, let's see. His game logs back in 2020, a year ago. He got hurt during that game versus Steelers. And his last game that was played in 2020 was versus the Washington football team, and where he threw for 203 yards with a touchdown, completing 22 of 34 passes. I'm not sold. Not 10 games, no. If anything, if you want to hear like my rankings of the AFC North quarterbacks, when you really look at, I'll go with Baker Mayfield number one for right now. Then give me a Lamar Jackson, yes, and Ben Roethlisberger, then Joe Burrow. I'll give him third. I'm not going to put him at the bottom of the list. Will not happen. Ben Roethlisberger is still good enough to win in this league. When you also look at Peyton Manning too, his final year. Listen, definitely two separate levels of quarterbacks. A guy who's been a 5-time MVP in Peyton Manning, and has also had a pair of Super Bowl rings. You could argue as much as you want. That defense won that Super Bowl, but guess what? He was still pretty damn good enough to do what he had to do to help get them back there. It was in large part of the defense, yes, but 2 years prior, he was still had one of his most successful, seasons yet as a quarterback. When you think of Peyton Manning, for the most part, when he got back his passing touchdown record, That year in 2013, his league MVP year, threw for 55 touchdowns for 5,477 yards. I mean, in that season, that was the first time he ever threw for over 5,000 yards, was back in 2013, and only having 10 picks, I mean, for that year. So, and then 2015, obviously, I mean, he was pretty much a whole shell of himself. The neck injuries pretty much caught up with the guy. Only threw for 2,249 yards, 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. I mean, that season. But he was still good enough, I mean, to realize what he had and just do what he had to do to not mess up a good situation. I mean, Peyton Manning, at the end of the day, I mean, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, and a guy who's helped revolutionize the quarterback position. So let's go ahead and get some other thoughts right now. So I got Ben Roethlisberger probably as the third best quarterback. I'm not sure if I'm going to put him in as number 2, probably because of the added element. What we're seeing right now with mobile quarterbacks and also throw the ball, I probably give the Lamar Jackson for right now. I'll maybe change my mind throughout the season, give him the number 2, even though the fact that they did face each other one time in each other's career, Ben Roethlisberger and Lamar Jackson. He's one-upped them on the road. But let's think about that a little bit. Also, too, real quickly, before we move along, too, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, Raiders defensive tackle, backup defensive tackle, Jared McCoy, he suffered a season-ending knee injury in Monday Night Football's victory versus Ravens. The Raiders lead the all-time series in this contest, 16-13. Mike Tomlin is 2-4 in his career versus the Raiders, and you gotta believe right now. I mean, this has definitely been like a frustrating team for him to run into coaching career-wise. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, like how they've been able to like not figure them out, especially on the road or at home, yet alone. I mean, the only time the Steelers really convincingly, beat this Raiders team, too, when you look at it, and all their matchups under Mike Tomlin, for the most part, when they met all time. That was back in 2010. And I want to say they held them to only 3 points in that game. Let's take a look at it. And that was other head coach Cable, I think it was at the time. But in 2010, they beat them down pretty convincingly in that game, 35-3 in that contest, and that was in Heinz Field right there. And you look at it, and last time they beat them, I think Ben Roethlisberger, he got knocked out of the game in the fourth quarter. Lance Jones had lead him down for a field goal drive right there. That was a game-winning field goal. I believe it was by Chris Boswell. And 2018, fast forward 3 years later, here we go again. Lose to them once again, as they made it a lifetime 0-3 in Oakland. So you got to believe right now. I mean, this is a team right now. I mean, it's any given Sunday, but I think this is definitely a team you don't want to keep losing to. And be a reminder, like, how Mike Tomlin plays down to lower opponents. Raiders will never be a lower opponent in their minds, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at, this Raiders team and what John Gruden has been able to do, I mean, the story of his coaching career, basically. I mean, he's only been good until his fourth season in the league of coaching, when you really think about it. I mean, John Gruden, for the most part, who came into the league, I want to say it was his fifth season. Let's see. John Gruden, who started coaching back in 1998. Yeah, his fifth season. His first 5 seasons were probably his legitimate best at coaching. And his Warriors went to the playoffs 3 out of those 5 years. And he took the Oakland Raiders as far as to the AFC Championship game. Of course, they had bad luck the following year when they lost to the New England Patriots, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, with that tuck rule on the road in Foxborough, which they should have held on one. I mean, they pretty much got screwed over in that game. But what did he really do? I mean, he got fired by Al Davis, or not fired, but I think he got dealt away. He got traded away, and had a lot of draft value, first round picks, and return for screwing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They paid the Kings ransom to get him, but he was able to lead the Buccaneers, a Tony Dungy veteran squad, with the likes of a Warren Sapp, a Mike Litch, Derek Brooks, and able to finally get him over the hump. Versus Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing season. I mean, he's finally did it with his team. I mean, back in 2008, even though a large part of that was Bill Cowher's team, let's be honest. But, I mean, at the same time, too, Mike Tomlin did make it clear that he was not going to be running things Bill Cowher's way. He was going to be running things his way. So, for that regard, for that alone, I mean, it should be enough to answer and put this thing to the rest that was his team. I mean, where he inherit Ben Roethlisberger or not, he still had to put his imprint on it, I mean, his motivation, however he had to do it. Let's go ahead and move the chains along real quick now. Stephon Tuitt right now. Stephon Tuitt, who's been having an emotional offseason, of course, losing his brother in a hit and run this past June. And you can only imagine where his mind, heart, and soul continues to be right now. He started the injury the season on reserve and injured list. But according to one teammate, Tyson Alalalu, he believes he'll be returning soon. Star defensive tackle, he went surgical procedure. There have been a lot of questions regarding when the Steelers might expect him back in the lineup. According to Alalalu, he says, I see him in there every day doing his rehab, according to Alalalu. Gesturing toward the UPMC Ruling Sports Complex Wednesday as the team wrapped up practice as they prepare for this Sunday versus Raiders, their home opener. Alalalu continues to go on to say that I know it's going to be soon. I know he'll come back ready and ready to do the same thing he's doing last year. I think he'll even do better. And I mean, that will definitely be interesting right there. And when you look at it, I mean, for the most part, I mean, going into this contest here, for the most part, I mean, you look at like under Keith Butler, basically. And I mean, you look at like what he's been able to do as far as like, with his defense and stuff too. I mean, Stephon Tuitt, by the way, I mean, he finally cracked double-digit sacks for the first time in his career last year. I mean, where he had 11 sacks. I mean, he was finally able to do some damage right there. I mean, he's had 246 career total tackles here, with 176 of them being solo. 94 quarterback hits, which also was a career high last year. He had 25 of them. So he was definitely laying out some punishment right there on that defense front alongside Cam Hayward. So, I mean, he really started to come into his own a little bit right here. And Stephon Tuitt, I mean, for the most part, I mean, listen, I mean, this is a guy, I know the expectations are still a little bit high for him. I mean, trying to have him, like, really do well and succeed. I mean, Tuitt, I mean, he's still a nice anchor for this team alongside a guy with Cam, in my opinion. I think if anything, like, well, he just brings, I mean, he just brings a nice, good continuity. I mean, that helps generate the pressure that they so desperately need up front when it comes to laying out quarterbacks, make some key hits, making some plays. I mean, for the most part. And I mean, Tuitt right now, I mean, he's definitely a big reason right now when you look at Keith Butler's defense, who's actually in his sixth year for the most part. And the defensive ends on the team right now, they had 307 sacks in Butler's 6 seasons as defensive coordinator, the defensive ends right now, they are second on this list, contributing 60 and a half of those 307 sacks. So the edge rushers have really done a phenomenal job right here. I mean, when you really look at it, I mean, contributing for 179 sacks, which is about 59%, over half. So 59% right there. And then you also look at it too. I mean, one thing that's been very noticeable too. I mean, for a Steelers team who's usually like in the top 10 as far as like blitz percentage too. I mean, their first game, only one blitz off of 56 quarterback dropbacks in this game. I mean, when you look at, in the first game for 1.8% blitz percentage versus in the past, I mean, they had, 700 blitzes off of 1,888 quarterback dropbacks for about 38%. And usually, blitz percentage, which has become a stat on Pro Football Reference since 2018, as far as blitz percentage goes for the Steelers, when we really look at it, their best ranking was that very first year was in 2018, where they were second at about nearly 39%. And that's where you look at it right there. And I think for right now, let's think about this here for a second. What do you really feel like right now? Of course, it's the edge rushers that are like really controlling this, winning this battle. And I think they'll be able to get more to Derek Carr this Sunday. I have no doubt in that. But look at it too. As far as like sacks, it's definitely gonna be really interesting how they're able to do this here and keep that going. Is this gonna be more of a different style of defense where we're gonna see them be a little bit more patient with blitzing, so they could be a more well-balanced defense here? For the most part. And I really will be a lot interested to see how they're able to get that going right now for the most part. And versus the Raiders, I think it's definitely going to be real interesting right here. How they're able to continue to play smart and do things way better. If you guys got any questions or comments, concerns, feel free to hit me up on my Facebook page, which I'm streaming live off of right now at Mass Steel Nation. You can just also look at it too. You can also follow it, Mass Steel podcast for the most part. And also too, right now, which is very cool right now. Steelers right now, 74 straight games with a sack. They'll be looking to make it 75 games right now. And I really got to believe that's going to be very telling right there if they're able to keep that going. And I'll be honest with you, I would really like to see that trend continue. If anything, the Pittsburgh Steelers, by the way, sack-wise, they've hit an all-time high, with their sacks. And I think that was back in 2017. And we're, let's see, for the most part, the Steelers right now, I think their career high in sacks came back in 2017, and where they had 56, which was their record that year. And that was the first time right there where the Steelers right there, they have 4 straight seasons of 50 sacks or more, which was very noble. I'd like to see if that trend will be able to continue. But anyway, back to Keith Butler right there. I mean, the Raiders right now, I think they'll definitely could have their work cut out possibly, as they were 23rd, giving up the least amount of sacks right now for this contest here. Going into this contest right now. And also, too, I mean, one other person that made this injury report a few days ago, or a day ago, yesterday, was Eric Ebron. He practiced today. He was on the injury report yesterday due to a hamstring injury. The one guy that was already ruled out for this game will be Carlos Davis right now to keep an eye on. So, I mean, as far as like Carlos Davis right now, he is a backup defensive end. So I would imagine for this game right now, I mean, be backing up Chris Wormley right now. We have Loudermilk available, or who they'll be able to call up. We shall see how that train continues to roll right now. Also, too, Mika Fitzpatrick right now. Keith Butler seems to think that he's drawing comparisons to Pro Football Hall of Fame safety Troy Polamalu. When asked about moving Fitzpatrick, two-time All-Pro safety around the defense, the same manner Steelers did with Polamalu when he was in his heyday, Butler said it might not rise to that level. I mean, he was pretty much given the green light to line up anywhere on the field as long as he got to his assignment area at the snap. But it would be similar. He says not as much, I don't think, but he's a good player for us. Butler said Thursday, we like what he can do. We're going to move him and use his versatility. Don't get me wrong. I think Fitzpatrick, he is definitely a very valuable safety as a position. I mean, you definitely make an argument too. I mean, he was probably like second or third on that list in 2019 for team MVP. I mean, clearly, I mean, that year right there, there was TJ Watt who won it back-to-back years, I believe. But still, I think for right now, I mean, when you look at a guy like Fitzpatrick, I mean, no doubt, I mean, he's a big splash player for this team and really does a lot of damage right here as far as like with defenses. I mean, you can just definitely move around and really make some noise. But I mean, still, I mean, when you look at like Fitzpatrick too, by the way, I mean, let's look at his numbers right there too. I mean, he had the most interceptions a year ago with 4. He had 4 picks. I mean, there, and then you look at 2019 too. I mean, his other numbers too for Fitzmagic, I guess you could say, for the most part. He was tied for first with Joe Hayden. So, I mean, each year, I mean, this guy is top in interceptions. I'm not sure if I'm ready to call him Troy Polamalu just yet, but no question, in fact, he is a game changer. I think the only thing about Troy Polamalu, in fairness, he was just more unpredictable where he was going to be on the field. I mean, as far as like crouching up to the line of scrimmage, I mean, be able like not only get after the quarterback, but also make some key interceptions too. Some real big plays that could really turn your opponents upside down. And you look at Fitzpatrick too. I mean, let's look at this too. I mean, Sunday's game, he played 48 of his 85 defensive snaps at the free safety position. I mean, when you look at it, and the Dolphins, I mean, which by the way, I mean, since they had Brian Flores as their new head coach back in 2019, replacing Adam Gase, him and the staff want Fitzpatrick to play even more in the box as a dime linebacker. And his first 2 games in that season, he played 44 snaps in the box, 33 at free safety, 26 at slot corner, and 7 snaps outside. From that time period, he did request a trade right there. And thank God he did come over to the black and gold. And I tell you what, right now, you talk about, getting TJ Watt his money right now. Where would the Steelers be without a guy like Micah Fitzpatrick, who's definitely making a lot of his contributions, making a lot of his noise over here? And that's where I think about that. But let me know your thoughts right now. Fair to say, I'll go with fair or foul right now. Let's get into it. That Micah Fitzpatrick, he is this game changer, as was like Troy Polamalu. Draw the comparisons, I will say foul for right now. I'm not going to go that route. I do think he's a game changer, but I don't think he's on the level of Troy Polamalu. I do think he has the ability to affect games. He's a guy who is definitely a ball hawk at the free safety position. If anything, I'll probably give him like a little bit more of a comparison to like maybe like closer to like a Rob Woodson maybe. The only difference is he just didn't play. Fitz ain't playing corner. But as far as like creating takeaways, this is that guy, the cream of the crop for this defense that really elevates things going into it. And a guy that's really the Steelers been very thankful to have on their team. For what he's able to do and what his contributions are. And you got to believe right now, Fitzpatrick right now, who, by the way, right now, he has 5th-year option. He'll be going into his final year next season, hopefully getting a new contract. He's going to be making $10.612 million in 2022, with all that money being guaranteed. His whole rookie deal was basically he had a full guaranteed contract, basically. And last year he was able to make over $2.722878 million in that year. No, this year, excuse me. Last year was able to make over $1.975 million. For the most part. Let's see what happens right now. I'm definitely beginning some game plans for Show Blitz. Remember, that is going to be the new pre and post game right here. You'll be hearing it every Sundays, basically. But for this game, you'll be hearing it tomorrow evening instead. It'll be a Saturday night special. So get ready to tune in with me tomorrow. We'll do one here at 9 p.m. at the latest Central Time for Show Blitz, previewing the Steelers versus Raiders. We're going to do 30-minute pre- and post games. The podcast throughout the week is going to be an hour. And I apologize to everyone for all the back and forth scheduling, but just been having to figure out my schedule. I'm going to do Mondays and Fridays going forward at 8 Central Time. Just got to spread some stuff out throughout this time. Also, too, real quick, let's get into another thing right now for this season as we looked at NFL power rankings right now. It's that time after week 1 going into it for right now. Pittsburgh Steelers going into week number 2, according to NFL.com, they are 5th after moving up from the 10th spot. They moved up 5 spots this week thanks to that victory over the Buffalo Bills. And according to NFL.com, they were definitely good enough to leapfrog them, which, by the way, the Bills going into week 1, they were 3. They dropped 3 spots. So here are the top 10 teams according to NFL.com. You got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right now defending Super Bowl champs, at number 1, followed by the Chiefs. Deservedly so. To blow a 9-point lead late in that game, the Browns did. They had that game won. I know you're playing against Patrick Mahomes. You can't bet against him these days. But, Browns, they pretty much, I think they have them right where they wanted to. Unfortunately, they had a quick score moments later. You got the Rams at number 3. I have no argument with that. Let's look at Matthew Stafford. He had a real damn good game Sunday night versus the Bears right there. 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, 310 yards passing, I believe it was. in his debut. And you got to believe Sean McVay is just, chopping at the bits right now, like what more he could do, bring out in this offense, as opposed to like what he was unable to do with a guy like Jared Goff right now, who's with the Detroit Lions here. And then followed by the Rams at number 4, we had the Seattle Seahawks. Very encouraging opening victory as they move into the 4 spot, jumping from the 7th spot, basically, as they won their very first game of the season versus the Colts, 28-16. Then you also, like I said, you got the Steelers coming in at number 5. Bills are at number 6. They dropped 3 spots from 3 to the 6th spot. Then followed by the Bills, you got the Ravens right there at number 7, who are 5th, moved down 2 spots to that upset loss to the Raiders. Then you got the Browns, who are number 8 in week 1, stay where they're at. So the good thing for them, they didn't move down, but they didn't move up either. Then you got the Niners and Saints. Niners stayed the course right there. They were entering into that week 1 at number 9 to stay at number 9, according to NFL.com. And then the New Orleans Saints right there. Who would have thought the New Orleans Saints? Now, let me tell you something right now. Aaron Rodgers right now, who has definitely been a frustrated man, the last few years. Feeling like, his days are possibly being numbered, just unsure if, like, the Packers want him in that fold as their guy. Draft a guy in Jordan Love without communicating to him. Then you take the ball out of his hands on 4th and goal, NFC Championship game. And not only that, it's been a season of soul searching for the guy. And right now, I've been trying to force the hand to get traded out of Green Bay. No matter what he says, putting on the nice face and just saying he wants to finish his career as a Packer. But I tell you what, to get beat down the way they did, 38-3, and already having 2 picks in that game, pretty sad to see how things are starting off right now. If you're a Packers fan, going into that, because it's just not that guy you want to see on Sunday, the way he looked. And not only that, though, too. He just says it's only the first game of the season. He was pretty upset. But, for him to, just come back in there like he's going to pick up where he left off, and was very unsure if he was even going to come back and play this season. He was possibly looking at his own future right there. He only got sacked once, but he threw, just 2 interceptions in that game. Then you saw Jordan Love come in there. He threw 5 or 7 for 68 yards. No touchdowns by either quarterback. James Winston, he didn't necessarily he pretty much out-quarterbacked Rodgers in a way. He didn't show much in the pass yards, but 5 touchdowns and 0 picks right here. Sean Payton right now, he's definitely proven to show why he is probably the number 2 or number 3 coach in this league. And we see reasons like that, especially continue to do it right now with the retirement recently of Drew Brees. And that's where you have it. And let's get into one more, or fair or foul. Sack streak will come to an end. I'll say foul on that one for right now. I think they'll keep it going this Sunday versus the Bears, and that'll do it for this edition here on the Man of Steel podcast. I want to thank everyone for tuning in here. Once again, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Man of Steel CGR and on Instagram at Man of Steel Nation. Feel free to keep it here every Sundays for the pregame. Like I said, tomorrow we're going to be doing a Saturday night edition of Steelers versus Raiders. So make sure to keep it here. And then on Instagram, you can follow me again at Man of Steel Nation. As I leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.
Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink. I got you. Let's go.